Yes, can you hear me? Oh, perfect. Okay, so welcome all. As you already saw, I'm Izabela from IS Consulting. I'm a selection department manager, so here, like at the end of this event, I know that there were like 2 days of talking about the very important things that actually IS Consulting and me personally we are working in, which is connecting education students and the companies. And I wanted to do this presentation a bit more light, I would say, and a bit also ironic from recruiter's point of view. I suppose that, well, most of you might have some experience in the internships, some of you maybe not. Some of you, well, might know a lot, but I would like to point some important things in CV, in the interviews, and also I wanted to tell you how to use the experience like internships, okay? So I hope it will be interesting for you. Mm, Before I start, I wanted to add only one thing about what you are discussing during this event, because yesterday the entry speech was like very inspiring about the statistics, about the problem, and also I've heard about your presentations. From my point of view, I just wanted to add, well, one thing about the universities, which I think were a bit missed regarding to the youth unemployment, because that's also part of my job to work with universities. And for me, it's not about only about the value that what they are teaching you during the internship, during the education program, but it's also about where it starts from the career offices and international offices, because for me, those units, and I'm working with them personally, I think that they are not well prepared, and the factory of young talents, which universities are, I consider that everything starts from career office, which should guide you, which should be your personal coach and be your connection with the entrepreneur world. Okay, so for me that's the thing that should be mentioned. And another thing also about the universities and about the system, which I saw by recruiting people, is the bureaucracy, which unfortunately wasn't mentioned. There was one very important, very interesting point from Mr. Vladimir about the problem of that the highest unemployment is in Portugal and in Italy for high educated students, which seems a bit weird. And I know the solution why, actually directly, because we work with those universities, and I know that like to get the internship and to sign up the simple internship agreement, which is actually, internship is the first step in your career, the universities make problems about this. So these are 2 points for me that should be also considered while like making the reforms and well, working with unemployment with youth. But that's just small digression at the beginning already. To start, I wanted to tell you something more about, well, the first step, which is of course CV. Me personally, I'm young as you can hopefully see. But I became a young leader in the age of 24. And well, I had quite hard point like to get out from my country as well. I'm from Poland. And well, I didn't have a lot of experience. I spoke only or not only, but English, okay? So I didn't have Spanish or French to go to another country. So I knew that first step, it has to be CV. I wasn't even in Spain, so I was thinking like, how will I get this job without even like being able to come for the direct interview? So I started to work on my CV, so this is part of my personal experience, but also I wanted to tell you from 100 CVs that I see every day, what points you should make sure about, okay? Because I know that you know the structure, you know how CV looks like, it's obvious, but there are some things that from recruiter's point of view, I can see that they're not working or people are forgetting about, okay? So, first thing will be the cultural differences, because, well, let's say that I'm recruiting for Europe, for Spain, Germany, and France. And funny things are happening in CVs. Let's take as, well, of course, this candidate doesn't exist. I cannot put the personal data in this presentation. that, for example, German students are putting like fathers and mothers occupation, which might seem quite weird, I don't know why, but this is the first cultural difference that I mentioned. Of course, like this candidate is already on the good position to applying if his father is a king, and his mother is a queen. Another difference that I can mention is, for example, with English students, which put their grades in CV, which sometimes makes CV look like 100 pages. So by this, I want to show you that actually applying to European country or in general, like it's better to keep the general patterns, okay, and to check it outside of the box a little bit, because also maybe in your country they teach you to do CV like this, and this, but it's good to check the examples of another countries as well, okay, just to not make these mistakes, because, well, later, me as a recruiter, I have a lot of fun by reading this, but for the serious job, it's better to make sure that, that the most important things are written in your CV and that they're in a good format. Okay. Another thing, which also Ludwig already has at the beginning of the presentation, is about like how to get in contact with you, because honestly, we can talk about experience, about brilliant profile with the languages, with the education, but I can say that for 100%, 100 students that are applying, I'm able to contact with 80% because they forgot the most essential things. So I know that you might know it, but just to make sure that that you don't miss some information in your CV, so later you can check everything. Because first of all is for me the contact details, like mobile number, because you don't even imagine how many students, they don't put the country code, which, well, let's say we're applying abroad. So I'm a recruiter and I'm not, well, I consider myself as a clever person, but, well, I don't know all the country codes. So, and also I don't know where you are exactly. So I had the cases that I was calling, like, for example, student who are German, and his grandmother was picking up the phone telling me that he's on Erasmus in Portugal on the beach right now and he cannot pick up the phone. So it makes a bad impression somehow. So it's better to make sure that if you're going to Erasmus or to another country, be sure that you change the number in your CV, okay? And the second thing would be with the email address. That also, well, in case of Ludwig, it's middle series, because the best and the simplest thing is to put the name, point, sorry, the Spanish thing, point, surname, and that's all. Please don't make Princess 93 or something like this, because even if the CV is very serious, it doesn't make a good impression, okay? Then I would like to pass also through place of the residence. As we can see, this candidate is living in quite a huge castle, and he puts like all the details, but this is not the thing that recruiter is interested about. I don't care where you're living exactly, which street, especially if you're living in the weird neighborhood. It's better just to put the city, okay, and save this space in your CV for another very important things that sometimes it's better to change. So just write the city, and especially the city where you're now, because you don't even imagine how many people are coming to Barcelona looking for the internship, and in their CV they have their home address. So for me, of course, some jobs, they require the presence. So if I have a German speaker with the old address, I cannot ask him to come for the interview, so he loses his opportunity directly. So this is also very important. Next point will be about the birth date, which is quite, well, negotiable, I would say, because with the birthday you have to be careful, as I saw like people who are very mature and they're applying for internships. So in that case, well, of course, every person has the right to apply for the internship, but older you get, then weirder it's getting as well. So usually then it's better sometimes to avoid the age. And the same is about the cases, for example, when you're young and you have a lot of experience, sometimes the employer might think that, but he's so young, something is wrong, something is suspicious. So Sometimes it's also better to avoid it. Later on, anyway, they will ask you probably. But then once you get the interview opportunity, you can defend yourself and present yourself better, which I will also tell you about later. And the last thing, just to pass it through, about how to get in touch with you and about personal data is about nationality, because this is crucial for the visa issues, for also for being here. So many people don't mention nationality, and sometimes it's very important to see, because with today's globalization we have people with Italian nationality who are native Germans, who are bilingual. Really, I met a lot of profiles, and the information about nationality became crucial for me, at least here in Europe with the migration laws and everything. Okay? So yeah, this is like the slide just to sum up. So contact details. Remember about the country code in the mobile phone. Professional mail. Address. Make sure that it's current where you're living, even if you're in Erasmus. A date of birth. Not necessarily what I would have done, because it depends on the position that you're applying for, and nationality. This is the thing that I forgot to mention about the visa status eventually. Okay, so there are some people who are outside of European Union, but they have visa status, working visa status, student visa status. It's important to mention that for the employer as well, because sometimes they might think that you don't have a visa and it will be a long process, it will be hard. So if you already have it, why not mention that, no? And make it easier for everybody. Okay, this is one point. I'm not sure if there are some questions, because I will do the question part after small. Mm-hmm. Yes, the photo thing is, well, it's also very fragile, but with English CVs, I was at the beginning when I was working with English people, I was surprised because there are no photos at all. And I was thinking, why? I mean, English people are not ugly. I mean, they should present themselves. Yes, but yes, it's culture, but I think it's also by the law that they're not, like, due to discrimination, they wanted to avoid that, so they want everybody to have a chance. And in some point it helps, but if they're applying for countries like other European countries, we have to ask them for CV as well. So it's only making the process longer.
So you believe that it's right to put photo on?
Yes, the professional photo, yes. Yes, of course, if it's not crucial, but really it makes CV more interesting even from the visual point of view. So yes, I will put the photo. Anything else that you would like to ask regarding the contact details or something? No. Okay, because now I would like to pass to the experience and education, two more important things that I won't talk a lot about it, although I have to say that students or mention put too much of the experience or too less. From my point of view, it's good to have a work experience, and every professional experience is very important, even if you're a waiter or something like this, but depends on what you're applying. Sometimes it's better not to mention. I saw people mentioning a lot of every summer they're working as a waiter, so they're mentioning they're making their CV longer just to seems that it's more professional. Of course, if you're applying for the waiter position, it might be okay, but in some points of your professional CV, it's good to think about making it shorter, and for example, putting the seasonal work from 2001 till 2005, and that's all. So employer will know that you have this, that you are working from the beginning. It's also important because those works which you probably did, and I also did when I was 16, I was working as receptionist and everything. But I had to sum it up, so the employer will know that, of course, I started to work very early, so this is the thing that you should appreciate. But later, the most important things I underlined, and actually, for example, like this, or also from my professional experience, I mentioned already that I started almost from nothing, coming from Poland. I had 1 month experience in HR and no Spanish. So I just used that 1 month to develop all the tasks that I had, really, all the tasks because I knew that I want to do HR. I underlined it very well in the CV, and somehow from 100 CVs, profiles like mine, because I wasn't nothing special, honestly, I got selected and I got the interview with IS Consulting, where I'm a leader now. So maybe seems simple, it's a small advice. Of course, you need some luck, but really like focusing on even the small experiences that can help you to get the job later is very important. And second thing is about education. Of course, we mentioned everything about the university, the faculty, this is important. But the thing that in this CV is characteristic that sometimes is missing is about specialization and the thesis, which students are forgetting about. Sometimes even studying something not necessarily connected. I was studying economy in Poland. Well, it's somehow connected with HR, where I'm working now, but economy is international business, all these faculties, all these studies give you a lot of knowledge. But if you're specialized in something, then you have a better opportunity to get what you want. So my thesis was about HR, and I mentioned it somehow, luckily, in my CV, and it was also the thing that took the attention of IS Consulting recruitment for my profile. Okay, so this is also the thing, thesis and the specialization. Okay. Whoop. It's not working. Where should I point? Where? Ah, okay. Second thing, or third, or fourth, languages. This is very funny part in the recruitment processes when we do that language test. And I have to say that, well, each nationality considers the level of languages differently. I mean, I can see, for example, I'm Polish, and like Polish people are quite, well, polite, so they usually prefer to put the lower, we are not so confident, so they prefer to put a bit lower level of language, so later the recruiter won't think that he's lying or something. But for example, French people, they consider sometimes like upper intermediate as well as being able to communicate in the shop. So there are tendencies, of course, I'm talking now in general, don't offend if you're French or if I mention any of nationalities here like this, but in general, people are different and level of languages also are different. That's why I recommend to use European level of languages, which is the general standard, which I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but like it's from A1, it's like elementary, so you can have like day-to-day activities. Then it grows from A2. B1, B2 is already like to be able, that you should be able to be to get internal communication in the company. Okay, if the company is asking for B1, B2, it means that they will probably give you the education in that language, and they need you to communicate with them. And C1, C2 is usually required, for example, for working with the clients in that language. Okay, so if the company is asking for B1, B2, it means that you want, well, it's mostly because they want to communicate with you. C1, C2 is because they want you to communicate with French clients. So the standards are getting higher. Also, my advice is to not put, like, if you know how to order the beer in some language, to not put it into your CV, because usually it's not useful. It's better to put really languages that you can speak, because, well, because the basic phrase is like, hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. This is the basic Spanish, but it doesn't change anything. I mean, this thing you can, I suppose that after 2 days here in Barcelona, you already know. So better save this space in CV for another things. And next point is about events. Just like to remind you that I hope that all of you after this event will put the participation in Youth Global Forum to your CV. I will put personally, even that I was a speaker, so like probably you can put it on yourself, and also I've heard that you have to pick up the certificates after that, so like be sure that you prove that you came here, that you participated, because it's something that on top of education and work experience will make your profile looks more interesting, as well as the interests, which are also, as the birth date, for me it's also kind of fragile part for the recruiter, because it makes the CV more human for me always to see the interests. Although, yes, the picking up the mushrooms, yes, this is the recent example I had to quote it because I couldn't start laughing because of this student. So, of course, this is inappropriate a little bit for me, but more what I wanted to say you is about these hobbies like reading books, going to the cinema, meeting friends. I mean, we all like it, no? So, I I think it's better to not put that if you, well, I hope all of you have interesting things to do in your life, but this is not something very important, so we just ignore it as the recruiters. But on top of that, if you have experience in coding, in fashion, in sport, it also depends on what sector you would like to work, because well, maybe in HR I don't have the example, but sometimes I'm recruiting, for example, for marketing positions, and I also check hobbies, because company, for example, if it's company who's producing sport products, they would like to have somebody who likes sports. So in that case, it's good to mention, especially like if there are some interesting sports, like a bit extra about you, then the company will look closer on your application. So interests, I would say yes or no, but you have to be careful with that, okay? Especially if you like picking up mushrooms. Yes. So just to sum up about the CV, remember to underline the best, okay? The experience, select what's the most important, underline it very good, and other experiences try to, well, maybe sum up. Education, include your specialization, and also, I forgot to mention that, that's why I have this sum up thing. I wanted also to mention about the country where you're studying. Okay, this is important if you did Erasmus or if you did all your studies abroad. I always like to see, for example, Polish students studying in other countries, because it means that you already have the international experience. Even though it was studying or work, doesn't matter, it means that you can pass the cultural difference. So it's already a plus for your application. Okay? Languages, use the standard levels, the European levels, and don't lie, because it will come out sooner or later. And with extras, remember to add information about the events and about the student activities that you had. And also be careful with your hobbies. Okay, whatever you do in your private time, remember that CV has to be professional but human. Okay, so this is my advice regarding to this. Okay, so with this part about CV, I'm more or less done. I'm not sure if you have any questions or any doubts regarding to my comments. Yes?
Okay, I want to ask the Angulas, do they really have any specific reason as to why they need us to put the hobbies, or do you really, what exactly do you expect from our hobbies? Because personally, I would wish to put fishing as my hobby, because I'm trying to imagine a fisherman with a fishing rod. He's going to the sea. He's not very sure if the fish is actually there, but he puts the fishing rod and waits.
Well, I would say that you would like to become a big fish in the future, with your career in a business. You know, the shark metaphor that we are using for a business shark, for students who are focused on their goal and they're always reaching that. No, I'm joking, of course.
So does it have to relate with what I'm doing, or it has just to be something abstract, different from what I am?
It depends on what you're applying. I mean, as I mentioned, hobbies are not the crucial thing, but you have to be careful. For example, fishing is already, well, it's not bad, neither well seen. I would say it's okay to put it, because later if you're applying for exact company or for exact sector, it's good to watch your hobbies and sometimes add or not to mention things. But if you're sending the general application, I consider fishing as interesting hobby. Probably means that you're patient, no?
Yeah, because I expect all entrepreneurs to be fishermen because they need the patience and they need to have the hope. You find sometimes maybe the fish have gone the other side to party and I'm here. I'm waiting for the fish and
Yes. No, then you should add it to your CV. I mean, it's definitely a good point.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else?
I don't know if you'll come to this point, but sometimes like big organizations like UN and like INGOs, they often ask if you have any problem if the human HR inquires your current employer. So is it better to write yes or no in such cases?
I'm not sure if I understood your question.
Sometimes like big organizations like
Yes.
UN or some
Yes.
INGOs, they
Yes.
often have like their own formats like P11 form for the UN and like even PLAN and other INGOs have their own format. And there are like questions which ask you, the applicant, if they can make inquiry to your current employer. So is it better to write yes or no in that case? Because like no one wants to lose the job until and unless he gets the better one. So is it good to write yes or no in such cases? Like I always get confused in that,
Well, for me, it's this question. It really depends on your company when you're working for and what contact you have. If it's and also if it's NGO and if you want to join it as like additional thing in your free time, then it shouldn't be a problem for employer. Even more, the employer should be happy that wow, I have ambitious person working in my company, and on top of that they're doing something. So it will be only a plus. But if it corresponds with changing the employment without saying it to your current employment, then you have to be careful, as even if it's NGO or if it's another job, like applying to another job while you're working in another, requires a lot of, not intimacy. Although from recruiter points of view, I have to say that usually, at least ethical recruiters, when we see in your CV that, you have to know what documents you'll need, how long would it take, and some extra if required. So with that one, if you have the interview with the employer and they will ask you about the visa, you can already defend yourself saying that yes, or no, I don't have a visa, but it takes half a year, I need just the invitation letter. So actually, when you accept me, I don't need a lot of you, I will handle that. I already know how it works. It really makes a crucial difference for the students outside of Europe. Like if you already know how to handle your application, how to handle your visa process. And for European citizens, it's usually not so problematic here, because for now we can move there and forward. The second thing will be about university requirements. For example, for Europe, for the internships at least, it's always required to have the internship agreement, which a lot of people, they don't know. And it's also the important thing to remember about, to confirm with your school. If you have mandatory internship, also confirm what documents your university will require. If it's not mandatory and you're applying for internship, I advise you from the beginning to ask your school, okay? Because if not, the recruiter will ask you. And the second thing, and the third thing, I'm sorry, is the labor law. Here, for sure, I will pass for the next slide because I wanted to tell you about example of Spain, about all the documents. So in case if somebody would like to come to Barcelona for the internship, then you already know. But from my story, for example, from labor law, I didn't know that in Spain, even I'm European, so I thought like, oof, it will be easy. But I came here and there's like a very famous Spanish NIE number, which is like ID for people from abroad here that Spain use it. Like in order to do everything, you cannot even rent a bike, you cannot open the Spanish account, even if you're European. So for me, it was already hard. And I remember I didn't speak Spanish. I came to international office. Nobody spoke English. It was kind of stressful experience at the beginning, honestly. And of course, every day I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to stand in the line. Now, for sure, like fortunately, Spain is going forward with electronic applications. But still, if I knew before when I came here about these things, if I would check the internet, if I wasn't so enthusiastic about coming to Barcelona and just coming here, because I didn't take in consideration few things, then I wouldn't have to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. So this is the important thing for Spain, that you always be asked here, and also the social security number, which allows the employer to pay the taxes for you and be registered as a worker, because all the internships, at least for the one that I'm recruiting for, are legal. So employers are paying you, are paying the salary per month, and they have to pay taxes from that. So with NIE number and social security number, if you ever apply to Spain, then welcome to our bureaucracy world. And these are two first things that you listen, at least for the first month. And of course, visa, internship agreements are the crucial things for the internships, if you need visa. And European health card, if you're European, then you have to do it for the health issues. If not, the students or the interns are always required to have the insurance for going abroad, or at least I always recommend it, because many things happen. But well, with that, keep optimistic. Okay, so in that part, I would like to ask if the documents are clear, or if anybody wants to ask something, maybe in particular about the internships in Spain or in Barcelona, about the documents here, because I'm here to answer the questions if somebody wants to come to the internship, or everything is clear. No? In that part, no. Perfect. Well, in practice, it's much more complicated, I suppose. Okay, the last point is once you get the internship, perfect. You pass the interview, you pass the CV, you're already here. You even have all your documents, so you can start your work. You can start working for the company, for you. What I noticed and what I wanted to mention in this presentation, which is also kind of part of unemployment, is that actually a lot of students that I recruit for internships are coming back to me. And I'm always glad, to have friends in the world, like to meet them again, but it means that this internship didn't work out, or that the student didn't use the internship as he should, because for me the internship is like an entry job. So of course few internships are well made, but it's very important to use the internship once you have it as much as you can. And also that's what I did, because I was recruited for a 6-month internship and then I was supposed to finish. But, and even though if they wouldn't plan to hire me after all, I thought like, okay, I work on my personal brand. I have in HR, it's quite easy. I'm not sure, like in other brands, in international relations, like all of you are related, it's also very easy to write articles, to get the connections, to go to the events, to work on your LinkedIn, what more examples of mine I had? Well, a lot. Okay. There are a lot of things to do. It's very important to go outside of the box once you do the internship, because only, of course, company will tell you what to do, because they will be happy that you help them, that's all. But I consider that the interns who are really going outside of their comfort zone and doing all the best, even if you're not doing it for the company, you don't have to, you don't have to do so much even for them, but doing something for you, you will really also improve the things for the company, okay? So that's the most important thing for me, that if you don't want to pass all the recruitment processes, creating your CV, interviews, and all that, let's say for some people stressful situation, just be sure that once you get it, you use it, you use it the best as you can, okay? This is very important, even if it's 3-month internship or shorter. And that's what I did. That's why I wanted also to tell you the story about me as the young leader, because I used my internship, I got what I wanted. I was always thinking a bit outside of the box, so in age of 24 I became a leader of the department, which I'm happy till right now, okay? And that's That's all. I'm not sure, like, okay, I will do the resume, like, just to remember you, that we're talking about simple, clear CV with all the contact details which are important, about knowing what you want during the interview, so being, being focused, being self-confident, confirming your documents, because unfortunately nobody else will do it for you, even though employers are very friendly, and while you have the internship, work on your personal brand. Okay? So, yes, thank you for your attention.